Hey, how's it going everyone? My name is Traore and I'm a chef in New York City. Today we are going to be making my potato gnocchi. I'm also going to include some butternut squash, some ricotta, some pancetta, you know, that savoriness. And then the aromatics that we're going to use is some sage. I have some chives as well. I'm going to start by preheating my wall oven to 350. So now I'm going to puncture these potatoes. And this pretty much helps release the steam during the cooking process. I'm gonna dress it in some olive oil, just a little. Get it fully coated. I'm gonna add in the first layer of salt. The reason why I'm adding the first layer of salt is because it helps with the cooking process as far as not having too much moisture. I'm gonna add in my aromatics, a good amount of thyme. Puncturing the potatoes also help because it's easier for these aromatics to flow through the potatoes. Don't be shy with it. I'm gonna smash some garlic in there, as such. And I'm gonna add in another layer of salt. And this prevents your herbs from burning and keeps your potatoes nice and still. Now we're gonna pop this in the oven for an hour and a half or until tender. Now I'm gonna season the ricotta. We're gonna use some chives, some lemon zest, and some lemon juice. This is gonna be my garnish. I'm gonna use it as a little crumble. And if it looks a little too wet, feel free to use a cheesecloth to separate the water. Now I'm gonna start by cutting my chives. It's all about layering your flavor profiles. You know, you have some acidity, you have some chives in there, and we're gonna simply fold in the ricotta. It's not too wet. Got some lemon juice here. Just a little. Gonna add some lemon zest. Here goes some chives in there. A little bit of salt. And now I'm simply going to fold it. Now we're gonna set this to the side until we're ready to garnish. All right, so it's time to make our gnocchi dough. We're gonna get going by cutting our potato in half. Look at that, it's nice and tender in the inside. On the outside, it's a bit crunchy as well. That's exactly what you want. Feel how perfect that consistency is. When you're making gnocchi, it's all about the process from start to finish. Every single step needs to be perfect. You wanna sift your flour because you don't want any clumps. I'm all about smooth consistency. I'm gonna scoop out the potatoes in my ricer. You want to avoid the skin. I'm also going to add some Dijon to this. I'm going to add in a little bit of Parmigiano. And this is just going to make it's going to pretty much get your flavors nice and bold. Now we're simply going to rice it. Nice and smooth. I'm going to add in my Dijon. The reason why I add Dijon is simply because, with cooking, it's all about experimenting. It's all about having fun. When you're in Paris, for example, they use Dijon. In Italy, they do not. But if you have best of both worlds, why not merge them together and get better flavors? And that's my approach to cooking. I'm gonna separate my yolks. I'm gonna add that in there, just like that. Now with this here, while I'm at it, I'm just gonna crack it and simply incorporate it just a little. Then I'm going to add in some Parmesan. Now I'm gonna add in a little bit of salt. I'm gonna fold this in. Now that I have everything mixed, get in there. You can transfer this to the board with a little bit of flour. I'm just gonna knead it until it has a smooth top surface. You don't want any, grain showing. You don't want to knead this too much because it's gonna release a lot of starch from the potatoes and that makes it a bit tough. And that's what you're going for. A nice round top that is smooth and fully incorporated. We're gonna let this rest for about 10 to 15 minutes. And the reason why you're gonna let it rest is because you want the dough to just relax. It's a lot easier to work with. Now that the dough has rested for 15 minutes, it's time to roll it out. As I'm rolling it out, I'm also stretching it. You want to have full control of it while you're rolling it. Now that I have it rolled out, it's time to portion it. Now, if you feel your gnocchi is getting a little sticky, feel free to add in a little more semolina. The whole reason for using this board is pretty much so the sauces could just get in the grooves and that's more flavors for you. And if you don't have a board, no problem. You can use a fork. And that's our gnocchi. I'm gonna fluff it up a bit, make sure nothing gets sticky. Now we're ready to cook them. Butternut squash time. I'm gonna start by peeling it. And the reason why I love butternut squash in this dish is because, it gives you some sweetness. You have some saltiness from the pancetta. You also have the acidity from the ricotta because we added some lemons in there. When you're creating a dish, the most important thing to do is just having a full balance. Now that my butternut squash is nice and peeled, I'm just gonna portion them. Now I'm going to punch these guys with my ring cutter. I'm gonna cut these out into half moon pieces. Of course, you could just simply dice these up. Now it's time to cook our gnocchi. We're gonna bring the water up to a boil. I'm gonna season my water with some salt. What's cool about the cooktop is it has a dual element to it, so you can bring your water up to a boil even faster. Now that we have our water up to a boil, I'm going to drop in my gnocchi. You're gonna notice the gnocchi is ready when they start to float on top. You don't want a hard boil. You just want it to be at a low medium so you're able to see them naturally float. So now we're going to sear the butternut squash. We're gonna have the heat at a low medium. The secret to a golden sear is making sure that when you're adding your ingredients to the pot, it's not overcrowded. Seasoning it with a little bit of salt. I'm gonna add in a little butter. More aromatics. Have some cinnamon sticks in there as well. And then to finish it off, I have some lemon zest. Yes. Now it's time to sear the gnocchi. Drizzling some oil at the bottom of my pan. This is the color that you're going for. I'm gonna deglaze it with some white wine. We're gonna cook out the alcohol, add some brown butter. You can turn off your heat and then start zesting your Parmesan, and this just will get it nice and creamy and make sure that your butter sauce doesn't break. Now I'm gonna add in my pancetta, nice and crispy pieces here. It's gonna give you some bite. It's gonna give you a little bit of saltiness, which is beautiful when you're having gnocchi. And it's time to plate. Add in my gnocchi. Another component that I'm going to garnish this with is some butternut squash ribbons that have a little bit of olive oil and salt. I'm adding the ricotta now, and that's gonna give you some creaminess to the dish as well. Now I'm going to add my sage chips, which were cooked in the brown butter. To finish it off, I'm going to add in the reserve sauce from our gnocchi, Parmigiano. All right, now it's time to give it a try. Right off the bat, you're able to get that creaminess. The gnocchi, crunchy on the outside, very smooth in the inside. I love it. Thanks for having me.